Sometimes the key to discovering your soul types is hidden in your challenges and inner resistance. Because where you struggle often points to where your soul wants to heal and expand. Today, we're diving deeper into soul types in this second part of the series. And stay with me until the end because I will guide you through a second exercise that will help you clearly identify the mix of soul types you carry. Welcome to Mystical and Practical, the podcast that demystifies the soul's journey, the spirit world, and spiritual practices. I'm Meli Guidance, a past life psychic, certified Akashic Records reader, and channeling coach. Here, we talk about spirit guides, the Akashic Records, reincarnation, and everything that connects the seen to the unseen, all with both feet firmly on the ground. Ready to decode the spirit world and connect with your inner magic? Let's jump right in. Hi there, this is our final episode of 2025 and today we're exploring soul types more deeply. So we're going to take a look at your dominant soul types, your secondary soul types, the whole mix that you have and how they all have a shadow side that shows the fears and blockages you came here to heal. So if you haven't listened to part 1 yet, I highly recommend that you do because it lays the foundation of what we're exploring today. And obviously, I'm going to link it in the show notes for you. So even though I won't be repeating everything from episode 1, I will start with a refresher on soul types that I will bring to you here on screen. So we have the helper soul types who likes to be of service and help others. We have the healer soul types who likes everyone to feel good and to be well. We have the educator soul type or teacher soul type if you prefer, they want to impart knowledge. And then we have the thinker soul type that is very cerebral, likes to learn and to analyze. There is the creator soul type. Now we're very much more head in the clouds. They like to create. They like everything that is abstract. There is the performer soul type. Performer needs an audience, wants to be seen, wants to be authentic. There's also the hunter soul type. They're very dynamic, goal-oriented. You have the leader soul type. The name says it. They like to lead. Oftentimes they're going to have some kind of charisma and they need a group. Just like the performer soul type, they need a group that they will lead. There is the spiritualist soul type. Now, most of you are spiritualist soul types. It's all about feeling connected to some kind of higher power, being very curious about spirituality, personal development, of course, like soul guides and how to connect with them. And then there is the transformer soul type, and nowadays we see more of quasi-transformer soul types because full-on transformers are quite rare, but they are the movers and shakers. They want to bring big change to the world, and oftentimes they're doing it when it's on their very last incarnation. So if you're not on your last incarnation, but you do have those traits, you're more of a quasi-transformer. So that was my quick refresher. So there are 10 soul types that have been channeled by Ainslie MacLeod. And these soul types, you haven't chosen them randomly. So you have selected them as part of your soul plan. All this based on your past lives, your past life traumas, fears that you want to heal, your natural talents as well, the lessons you want to learn, karma you wish to balance. And in all of the soul types that you generally have a mix of 6 to 8. You have your dominant soul type, and that's your main energetic lens. And that's the one you embody the most naturally. So when I say energetic lens, it's really like you see the world through your dominant soul type. And then you have other soul types that are more secondary soul types, and they add nuance and depth, and they shape how your main energy, your main soul type expresses itself. So it's kind of like a dance depending on what you're going through in life. Some soul types are going to come more on the forefront. So, for example, when I was a student, I needed to be very much organized and cerebral, so the thinker soul type was very much at the forefront. Nowadays, I work as a psychic, so it's more like spiritualist, creator, and the performer because I'm here in front of the camera. Now they're a little bit more on the at the forefront. So it's like sometimes there are soul types in the front burner or at the front of the scene, and sometimes it's more like back burner or back behind the curtains, but they're always there with you. So it's important to say that there is this shift that everyone experiences just so that you don't have this pressure of feeling like you're activating all your soul types all the time. So you can just relax with that. It's normal if you see like, oh, I have 8 soul types, but I don't feel that maybe your healer is that activated at the moment. It's completely fine. In regards of mix with soul types, I would like to share an example with my family. So I have a brother who carries a mix of spiritualist, creator, and helper soul types, amongst others. Like he has more, but he has a lot of spiritualist, creator, and helper. He is both a janitor and a poet. Now, for those of you who are curious, his name is Poète de Merde and he only writes poems in French. So if you happen to read French, you can find him on Facebook. Again, it's Poète de Merde. So he is deeply sensitive, connected to the spirit world, grounded in everyday tasks, and he is very much of service to others. So that's how his mix translates in his life. That's his energy, how it perfectly reflects his soul mix, if you wish. And it just so happens that his partner does the same. Like she's a janitor as well, and they have 2 daughters. And their youngest daughters, she is 18, and she clearly carries the helper soul type as well. Even as a child, she was responsible, she was helping others without hesitation. It simply felt normal to her, and I remember having her over here during the summers. I needed to work from home, and my daughter was at daycare, but sometimes at daycare, they go on vacation as well, so I was kind of stuck like, oh, I have a very young child here, what am I going to do? Well, I would invite my niece over who was just 4 years older than my daughter, and she was pretty much acting as her babysitter. Even though the age gap wasn't that much, she was that responsible. I was just there at home in case they needed a band-aid because an accident happened, but she was quite mature. And that was because she has the helper soul type. It made her mature. And there's something funny happened a few weeks ago. We had a family dinner at my place, and that niece, my 19-year-old niece, she was saying, "Oh, I'm going to make it so that I can arrive, at time for the supper because I'm working at this restaurant, and I'm going to find if there is any way that I can get here on time." And she was telling us that she came on time because when she asked one of her colleagues, "Can I leave earlier?" She said, "Yeah, sure, you can leave earlier if you take my task of cleaning the bathrooms." And my niece, who is a helper soul type and her parents are janitors, she was like, "Yeah, sure." And she was telling us, I don't see where the problem is. You just put on the gloves and you do the job. That's a helper soul type. They won't go like, "Oh no, I don't want to do this." They like to help, and for her, it wasn't that a big deal, and she was just happy to be here on time to start dinner with everyone. And this also shows that soul types often repeat within families, especially between parents and children, because we always choose our parents and we discuss everything before we incarnate on earth. And so we have these kind of interviews with potential parents, people we want oftentimes to balance karma with, people we want to make sure that they're going to protect us, but also people that have soul types that we want to choose as well. So it's easier to have the same soul types sometimes. We don't always make that kind of decision, but oftentimes we're going to choose parents that have soul types that we're going to carry as well. So with this mix, I'm going to show you how every soul types has their challenges. So I've explained to you in the last episode number 7, we went through all the soul types and all their characteristics. And if it's still not clear to you which soul types you have, it's going to get clearer when I'm going to explain to you each challenge for each soul type, because maybe you're going to recognize your challenges more clearly than the aspects of the soul type. So let's go through the 10 soul types and see the challenges for each. And let's start with the spiritualist soul type, because most people here have the spiritualist. So spiritualists have a fear of being misunderstood. They also have a fear that what they do doesn't have meaning, isn't deep enough. And there's also this tendency towards spiritual bypassing if they're not grounded. And by that, I mean feeling that you absolutely have to be spiritual all the time, or positive all the time, being in gratitude all the time, and not feeling deep emotions and denying yourself feeling emotions that can be perceived like bad emotions, but you're only human. So it's normal that you are going to, sometimes be angry, because you're incarnated in a body on earth and you came here to experience a vast array of different emotions. So it's not bad to feel anger. It's just about how are you going to deal with it and observe the anger and let it move through you and not getting stuck with it. So when you're all, everything is great all the time, always positive, always happy, that is not human. So there's some spiritual bypassing there. So this is a risk when you have the spiritualist soul type. Sorry, I think my daughter is making supper and she dropped something. It's just the life of a mom here. You're going to hear my cat. You're going to hear my daughter. This is my life. Okay, let's move on with those lovely noises from everyday life. Okay, the creator soul type. The challenge there is a fear of rejection, oftentimes with the creator. And there are also maybe some emotional overwhelm, because creator soul types are very sensitive, and sometimes the heart chakra is so open that there is an emotional overwhelm due to their high sensitivity. The performer soul type has a fear of self-expression and a fear of judgment. And this is why they chose the performer soul type, to heal that fear. And there is oftentimes that pattern of people pleasing that comes in, where they want to please everyone. Everyone must be happy. They don't want any conflict. And if there's no conflict, there is no possibility of judgment or rejection. The hunter soul type, for their part, they have a fear of stagnation. Like they need to be in movement, but at some point you also need balance. So you cannot be in movement all the time. So they may feel that if they stop doing a lot of things, something bad is going to happen. So there is this difficulty of slowing down, or they might feel that if they stop doing, they're losing their value. So they need to learn how to calm down and feel like they have value even if they're not doing all the time, because it's all about finding that balance between doing and being, right? So that was the hunter soul type. Now let's move on to the educator soul type. They have a fear of not being understood, and that will make it so that they will over explain things in great details. And I have an educator soul type in my step family, and that's my stepdad. And he went through a war in his country, and he's a political refugee, so he went through a lot of hardships, and he loves like the history of everything that happened. And before that he was working for his government, and he used to go travel in many countries. And that was in the 60s and 70s. He had this job where he saw the world, and he loves knowledge. He has the educator soul type. So there is this joke that when there's a family gathering, you do not want to get stuck one-on-one just with him, because with his educator soul type, he wants to talk to you about where he comes from and the war, everything he went through. And it's fascinating, but oftentimes it's too much in details, and so it's very heavy. And even though we want to know all those things, it makes it so that everyone flees. And so it's always a joke of who will be the last and who won't be able to flee the situation. And what you need to do in those kinds of situations is saying, wow, that's fascinating, but it's a bit too much information for me to handle right now. They just need to be told once in a while, just to realize that not everyone has this deep educator soul type, and oftentimes the educator has a thinker soul type. So this is how they want to be understood so much that they're going to over explain. Now, moving on to the thinker soul type, they have a fear of losing control, and they are over-intellectualizing emotions. And so it's hard for them to be in the flow. It's hard for them to be in touch with their emotions because they're more in their minds. And this is how we often say, start from, would you say, drop into your heart? You go from the mind to the heart. Maybe it's more of a French expression, but it's like, okay, drop into your heart more. This is what the thinker soul type needs to do. That's their big challenge. Now with the helper soul type, they have a fear of being useless. And this comes with a lot of them being into self-sacrifice and losing themselves and forgetting how they matter and they are important and they must prioritize themselves. You know how on a plane they say if something happens, put on your mask first and then put it on your child. This is a big challenge for the helper. They just forget to prioritize themselves. Now the healer soul types, they are absorbing the pain of others because they want others to feel so good that they are going to absorb a lot. That makes it so that a healer soul type can be a good ear for someone, a good listener, and they listen and then they absorb all the negative energies and they get stuck with it. And that happens because they have a lack of energetic boundaries. Now, for the leader soul type, they have a fear of losing control and they are stuck in rigidity. So they could gain in being more in the flow, more open to others. Now, I'm saying this for the leaders, that's their challenge. Doesn't mean that because you have the leader soul type, you're always rigid, but some leader soul types, are going to have that rigidity, are going to move through this challenge more than others. But in general, leaders also like to have structure and control so that it's easier to lead the group. but you need to find the balance in that control. And lastly, the transformer soul type, they have a deep sensitivity to injustice, and that can lead to emotional overload, being so angry by everything that is happening and being too much in their emotions. And sometimes transformer soul types are going to put themselves at risk because of that. A lot of them are going to lead protests in the streets, and they could put themselves at risk in certain protests. It depends on the country where you are in, but it can happen. So as you see, each soul type also has a shadow expression, and what happens when that energy becomes unbalanced is that challenge to overcome. So it's not necessarily bad when you come into the shadow side of your soul type. If you're able to recognize, whoops, I'm unbalanced, this is the shadow side, you become lucid and you become very conscious of where your soul wants you to go, where you need to heal or remove blockages. So it helps you to recognize where you lose alignment and how to return to your center. And there's also an interesting thing in looking at soul types and soul ages, because soul types express differently depending on your soul age and life experience. For example, a young soul creator may create to be seen, for their ego to get boosted by being seen, while an old soul creator creates to express truth. Another example with the spiritualists, you can see that a young soul with a spiritualist soul type seeks structures and rules. This is something that you see often in organized religion, for example. And an old soul spiritualist soul type seeks freedom and a direct connection to the divine. So this is why two people with the same soul type can feel completely different. Okay, now I am going to give you a list of questions to help you to identify your dominant soul type. Okay, so if you have the time right now, you can take a pen and paper and answer those questions. If not, you can come back to the exercise. I will put a timestamp in the show notes so you can come back to it. Okay, so first, to help you identify your dominant soul type, ask yourself, what deeply nourishes me beyond surface satisfaction? So, in other words, what brings me deep contentment? Okay, so if you wish to develop your answer, you can press pause in between questions. Second question, what role do I naturally take in groups? That is very revealing, the role that you take in groups naturally. And also, how do people feel drawn to yourself in groups? You know, if something happens like an earthquake, well, for me, I'm in a country where earthquakes don't happen frequently, so we get a little nervous when it happens. So imagine there's an earthquake and you lose power, it's a family gathering. Who do you look at? Who do you look to at first? Am I formulating this right? Like, who's your main focus? Like, there's something is happening. There's an earthquake. Like, you're on the verge of panicking. Who's your anchor in the room? Who are you looking at as an anchor? Who are you looking at to tell you what to do? In this example, you would be looking at the leader soul type to lead you through, okay, we're going to get shelter in this way or that. So this is just a specific example with a leader soul type. So think about, if something would happen, when do all eyes turn to me to do something because they know I will do it naturally? Now, third question. What do I do effortlessly without draining myself? What you do naturally without draining yourself reveals something that is within you, within your soul types, within your talents. For example, in my case, I write a lot. In 2026, I'm going to have 3 more books and 2 oracle decks, only in French. Sorry for the solely Anglophones here. It's only in French, but I write a lot. It's easy for me. And you know, when you write for a publishing house, you have deadlines that you need to deal with and all of this. And it's really easy for me, even though it's a lot, it's easy and it's not draining myself because it's part of my soul types and my talents. Fourth question, what frustrates me the most about others? So if you're frustrated about a trait in others, it's probably because you have a trait, a soul type within you, and you're natural at it and you do it very well. And sometimes when we see people who don't have our soul types and they try to do that thing well, but they're not doing it well, it frustrates us. So if we go back to an example like for me, if you don't know this by now, I'm a professional linguist. So I'm a professional English to French translator, and I am also a French proofreader. I have a talent for communication, and as I said, you know, I write a lot of books. I write my blog. This comes natural to me. Now, before I was doing all that personal development, you know, spiritual stuff, I would be very much in my ego, and I would be frustrated when I would see people who wouldn't write correctly, who would be unclear. And so that would reveal that, oh, I have that trait of, I have that performer, thinker with a talent for communication. I also have a mission of control, a talent for logic. So sometimes when you see people who don't have the same traits as you, it frustrates you. Okay, last question. What did I naturally do as a child? That is so revealing. As a child, we are so much into our soul types, talents, and missions because we don't feel the pressure of being a certain way for others in general. Not all children, but in general, we are so pure as a child, so it reveals your soul types. Now, there is a key sentence to remember that will help you even more point out what your dominant soul type is and your soul types in general. Okay, so hear me out. If you can envision yourself doing it, it is part of your soul's plan. I'm going to repeat that. If you can envision yourself doing it, it is part of your soul's plan. And you might wonder why. Well, when you admire your idols, for example, we went through this in episode number 7, first part of the soul types. The idols that you have, the people that you admire them because you would like to be like them, because you can see that you could be like them. Oftentimes, they are your expanders. They show you how you can grow into becoming who you are. It doesn't mean that you need to be famous. Oftentimes, our idols are famous. And they are idols because we see them because they are on TV or maybe in movies either. So they're very noticeable. And it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to be super well known unless you have a desire for immortality. Then maybe this is what you want. But you admire them because it is something that your soul wants to go towards. Everything that is within your life plan, you are able to visualize yourself doing it. And if you cannot even imagine yourself in a certain role, it's likely not part of your soul's blueprint. And I have an example here for you. A personal example of me when I was 16 years old. I live in Quebec, so at 16 I was in secondary 4, and this is where they start giving you tests to see what kind of career you can think about, because in a year and a half we're going to what is called CEGEP. And so we need to narrow a bit more what we want to do in life. And I was in a class where we knew each other very, very well. I was in a special program where we stayed the same group together from secondary 1 to 5. So that's basically from 12 to 17. And we became quite tightly knit. And this is how we were very comfortable with each other. And so we were supposed to fill out this test in silence. But I couldn't help myself. At a certain point, I started laughing out loud. And the people in the class were saying, "What's going on, Meli?" And I was saying, "Oh my God, there's this question like, could you see yourself drive a tractor?" And I couldn't stop laughing. And there was this guy in the class, Mark, who was living on a farm, and he probably was driving tractors for many years by that time. And he was like, "What's the problem with driving tractors?" I was like, "Well, there are no problems with driving tractors, but can you imagine me driving a tractor? Like, I'm really petite." I was really tiny at that time. I'm petite and I'm very intellectual. I'm not good in sports. I don't have that eye movement coordination. And I didn't know it at the time. I wasn't driving. Maybe I was driving. I was passing my driver's test, but I'm not a super driver either. Like, I'm an okay driver. And I was like, I could never imagine myself do that. And those tests, as you probably know, they ask you those questions so they can see where you can envision yourself. I cannot envision myself doing manual labor of any kind. I have the hunter soul type, but that hunter soul type is there to give me drive, to make sure I'm goal oriented, to help me with my old soul fatigue. So if you can envision it, it's part of your life plan. If you cannot, it's not part of your life plan. So that can help you see where your soul types are. Okay, so I would like to finish our chat today by pointing out that your soul types, they do not limit you. They explain you, they explain who you are, and they reveal how you're wired, how you grow, and how you serve. And if you would like help identifying your soul types, your soul age, and your life missions, you can book an Akashic, a soul plan Akashic reading with me. And if you would rather just learn to channel all this information for yourself, my channeling and my Akashic records courses are available to support you, and I will link them in the show notes. So that's it for me today. Thank you for being here. I wish you a beautiful end of the year, and I will see you very soon. All right, take care, everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Mystical and Practical podcast with Meli Guidance. If this episode spoke to you, please subscribe to the channel and leave some stars, a thumbs up, or a comment. It truly helps to share the podcast with other old souls seeking a deeper understanding of the spirit world. If you're interested in getting an Akashic Records reading, a tarot reading, or joining one of my online courses, you will find all the details at meliguidance.com. This podcast was edited by plcm.ca and the original music was composed by record.bandcamp.com. Until next time, remember, we are all souls having a human experience and we can all be mystical and practical.